Hello and welcome to The Tonight Show. Coming up on the programme with less than a week to go to Budget 2026, what will be in store? No senior ministers yet finalised their departmental allocation in what is expected to be the tightest budget in recent years. Later, we're also going to be looking at tomorrow's front pages. But first, Tánaiste Simon Harris says the government made a solemn promise to cut the VAT rate for hospitality in Budget 2026. Is this the right priority? I'm joined by Fianna Fáil TD, John Lahart, Independent Ireland TD, Michael Fitzmaurice, and Research Officer with SIPTU, Michael Taft. You can send us your comments. Should Budget 2026 include once-off cost of living measures? Simply scan the QR code or contact us via the WhatsApp number. John, we will circle back to once-off measures maybe in a few minutes, but on the hospitality VAT rate and the proposal to cut it down to 9%, are you supportive of that?
I understand why it's necessary. I think the hospitality industry in every constituency, including my own constituency, has absorbed a lot of the increased costs that were introduced in the last number of years, and they were all very valid costs, where it was the increase in the minimum wage, the additional bank holidays, additional sick leave, all of those. And for some businesses, they were kind of quite striking. I was on the Budgetary Oversight Committee for 5 years, and this is a really interesting time of the year. The two ministers for Public Expenditure and Finance came in, I think, a week ago. And so in the lead up to the budget over the few months, you'd have the various lobby groups. They'd be making their pre-budget submissions, and you get a sense of themes emerging as to what the priorities are going to be. I think the big thing, I suppose, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. It's, I'd say, a very interesting debate around climate, because we know that there's about, I think, 1.5 billion available in tax cuts. To give that all to the hospitality piece. Yeah, well,
it's about 680 million odd. So you'd be given, closing in on half of it to one sector.
And if you look at, for example, carers allowance, that costs about, we've a commitment there as well to scrap the means test for that. We've made a lot of progress on it. But to do that in one go equally would cost 600 million. So it's going to be stepped. So I don't envy the ministers. Commitments were made. I suppose one of the stats, like I got stung this morning, we all get stung. Hospitality, on the one hand, is facing challenges. On the hotel side, we had our thinking in Cork. It was almost impossible to get a room. Restaurants in some parts of the city are hard to find tables, and yet on the other side you find that some of them are closing now on Monday nights and Tuesday nights.
So just to try and interpret, it sounds like you're saying you can understand the plea for it, but you might be more relieved personally on Tuesday if the government announced maybe some targeted measures to help that sector, but not VAT rate cuts across the board. Would that be a fair reflection of your own view?
When you have 1.5, well, I would support, I obviously have a lot of hospitality business in the constituency. The point I was making about being stung was I bought a coffee on the way to work this morning and a pastry, and it was €7.20, and I hadn't seen the prices before I paid for it, and I thought, how is this costing, this much? Employment doesn't seem to have been affected in the food sector. There doesn't seem to be a drop in employment. What I'm saying is this: there's 1.5 billion in tax cuts committed. To swallow it all up in hospitality. If there are other measures, and the Taoiseach during Leaders' Questions in the last week did talk about that look, this is taken very seriously. The government is looking at a number of ways. Neither of the ministers, interestingly, raised hospitality in their opening remarks to the Budgetary Oversight Committee.
Michael Fitzmaurice, are you supportive of this across the board? Would you be hoping it's announced on Tuesday?
I would be hoping it's announced, but it needs to be targeted the way it's done. Basically, restaurants and, say, small coffee shops, places in the small towns where you get the breakfast in the morning or whatever, needs to be targeted at the likes of that. I don't agree with giving it to the likes of McDonald's or places like that. I don't agree with giving it to the hotels on the bed side of it. And yes, there will be some winners, Kieran, in the bigger restaurants, but overall in Ireland, I think we've lost something like 600 small operators. In small towns where there'll be one or two working, that's invaluable, to be quite frank about it. And yes, there is, I think, something like 230 or 40 new ones set up. And as I did say, I'm at the plant game all my life. when one fella goes out, someone else comes in, but they might find out the hardship after 6 or 9 months. So I think we do need to target it. I don't actually agree with it for chippers.
Yeah.
For the simple reason at 12 o'clock at night, if you're out having a few pints and you're wobbling home and you go into a chipper, you're not worried whether it's 6% more
what the VAT rate is.
more. You know, do you understand me? So we need to make sure we target it. I do think
I think the impression certainly that Pascal Donoghue and Jack Chambers seem to be giving behind the scenes is that it's proving difficult to target it, to weed out the McDonald's and the Supermacs.
Well, it's not.
It might be across the board.
In my opinion, there's a difference between a restaurant and a chipper. There's a difference between a bedroom and a restaurant or a small coffee shop. Like, you know, it's totally different what we're talking about.
There is maybe in your mind, but I think what seems to be, and listen, I don't know, it'll all be revealed on Tuesday, but what the feedback kind of behind the scenes seems to be, it's proving very difficult to come up with a mechanism that will mean that the small coffee shop that you want to support is going to get a VAT rate cut and McDonald's in Grafton Street isn't. It sounds like it's all duck or no dinner.
Well, in my opinion, it's workable. It should be very achievable because revenue know everything that everybody is at. There's no point in saying they don't. Let's not kid ourselves. They know whether you're a McDonald's or they know whether you're a small coffee shop in Roscommon or Galway or wherever in Ireland.
But does that, and I want to go to Michael Taft in just a moment, but does your point not beg the question, is there a better way to do this rather than through cutting the VAT? If we want to target it, that there's a system of grants or something else that's maybe administered to the Department of Enterprise or Rural Affairs or something else.
The bottom line on it is grants are very cumbersome. I've seen small businesses trying to look for grants, Kieran, during COVID and further on, and they're fairly cumbersome. At least every month there will be a difference for those. And let people realise this as well. It won't be going out to the public. It will be to keep those businesses alive. That's where the VAT, it won't be passed on. Let no one go cutting themselves.
Michael Taft, is this good policy?
No, it's a terrible policy. Even if you accepted the proposition that the hospitality sector as a whole was in trouble, and that's not the case, there's no evidence to suggest that there is, cutting VAT would be the most inefficient way of doing it. 40% of the benefit would go to fast food outlets. Only 10% would go to in-service restaurants, what we think of as restaurants, and another 10% would go to cafes and coffee shops. So the VAT cut wouldn't actually be putting the money in to where those who are claiming that the hospitality sector is under pressure wouldn't be going to them. It would be going to the fast food outlets, the Supermacs, the Starbucks.
Could you separate them, though, as Michael Fitzmaurice seems to suggest?
Well,
if you can separate out, the beds and the hotels from the restaurants, why not separate the restaurants then?
Well, you can separate the hotels and the restaurants, but whether within food services you can separate out fast food or the kind of in-service resident. That I don't know, because that is I've heard both sides of the argument. But let's pull back here a minute. Since just before COVID started, up to now, the hospitality sector has trebled their profits. Trebled. Their wages have not caught up anything near that. Only about 40-60% increase over that 6-year period. For every hospitality closure, the government data is that between 3 and 4 new businesses open up. Because don't forget, the hospitality sector is a high turnover because it's low, it's low entry costs into the market, it's low exit costs. So that type of replacement ratio, that type of closure was what we saw before COVID. So it's actually coming back to a natural phenomenon. And as John mentioned, employment has been going up over the last 3 years. When the government started substantially increasing the minimum wage, employment is going up. That doesn't sound like a sector in trouble. So the government, now, if there is an argument for targeted supports for those businesses that might be suffering, I don't think anybody would have a problem with that. But as far as spending 680 million euros, look what that 680 million euros could get you in some other areas. It would be able to provide free public transport. It would drive childcare fees down to 30 euros a week. It would provide free prescription medicine and still have money left over to increase the medical card threshold. All those things for 650 million euros. But what the government seems intent on doing is subsidizing chicken McNuggets.
John, Simon Harris certainly keeps repeating this line that, a solemn promise was made and we must be seen to keep our promise. It's going to be hard to keep that promise, isn't it, given what Michael just said, the comparisons that will absolutely be made on budget day?
So that's, I think, why I made the point about the carers allowance, that there's been a solemn commitment made to that. In this case, it's over the lifetime of the government, and I think people can see why, because I think as more and more people come into the system, the cost of that could stretch to 3 billion. One of the points
wouldn't it, sorry, to pick up on that point, and maybe this is what you're going to say, wouldn't it be political suicide to turn around to carers and say, listen, the relief that we promised you're going to have to wait and that's going to come incrementally, and then turn around to the hospitality industry and say, the relief we promised you're getting that overnight?
So you've made the point. And yet I do think, I think of the operators in my own constituency, some who would have been on to me from publicans and food. So I do feel for them, and if there were targeted measures. But there's a point I think Taoiseach has referred to from time to time. I don't know whether there's any research been done on this. There's been a real evolution in the hospitality piece since pre-COVID and before that as well. I know that pubs in my own constituency that might have been thriving and busy on a Monday night and Tuesday night, really after 8 o'clock, after they've done with food, certainly if I was managing them, I'd say, we could shut here, but they stay open. I'd say they're lost leaders for those first 2 nights. Some don't open until the afternoon on Monday and Tuesdays. Some don't open at all on Mondays and Tuesdays. People eat more at home. And I think there is, we're not finished with this yet. There's churn. Taoiseach described that in an answer recently. There's churn going on. There may be some closing who just, they're not able to survive in the existing market, whether it's because of the model that they operated under is out of date. But as Michael Taft just said, but there are, for everyone that closes, I see it locally, there are new ones opening. But this is not to say, the key thing that I do see with them and small retailers is all those additional costs that came in the last few years, they've had to absorb.
Is Simon Harris going to listen to you?
Well, there's 14 others around the cabinet table that he'll be listening to, and I'm sure that conversation.
To what extent is there a Fine Gael, Fine Fáil divide?
I wouldn't like to create that. It's a challenge. People make commitments. People want to stick to commitments, and certainly.
Because I heard Pascal doesn't actually like it either. This is actually a Simon Harris solo run.
Yeah. Did you?
Kieran, can I
comment on that one?
Can I come in on something there? Let's call this out straight. In the last number of years, we've been able to find 4 billion to make sure that people coming into this country were accommodated. It's costing 4 billion a year in the budget. If you look at the budget between Ukraine and between, say, asylum seekers. And here we are pitting carers against the hospitality sector, against students, against everyone. If we were able to find the money for that, I'm damn sure that we should be able to look after our carers, look after our pensioners, look after the hospitality sector and widows and disability and all of that. Let's not be gone into this mould of saying we cannot do it. We were able to do it up to now for others. So let's start looking after our own for once. Yeah, now, what some might say to that, including people who were before that Budgetary Oversight Committee that John mentioned, that Oireachtas Committee, like the Irish Fiscal Advisory Council, they would say that what you're advocating there is a massive budgetary expansion and we're already overheating the economy. They're talking about us being back in 2008 territory. In fairness, our economy is doing well. In fairness, there has been prudent budgetary decisions made. And I don't think so. Year in, year out, they actually criticise the government, and what they want is actually more prudent decisions this year. Just be clear on this. Budgets is all down to the growth that you have the following year. And at the end of the day, if you keep people in jobs, you will have growth. If you have doors closing, you will not have growth. But it sounds like you're advocating that we shouldn't heed their warnings. And it's bizarre to me that that's the position we're taking when this was a body that was set up in 2011. So we wouldn't repeat the mistakes of the past. And now we don't like what they're saying. I've heard our Minister of Finance saying that he listens to everybody, but that they still make their own decisions. And I think we need to make sure that, be it the hospitality, be it the carers, as John has pointed out, be it the different Michael's not in government. It's unfortunate. But it is unfortunate. No, but it's... Did you find 4 billion to look after Ukrainian people and
I don't know
people
why,
coming into the
actually,
country. I'm asking a question.
We did,
So
but
we were able to find that 4 billion. So we're talking here about $1.5 billion.
we also kept the country.
Correct. Yeah.
We also kept the
I
country.
didn't say you didn't.
We also kept the country going through COVID.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I won't forget it ever. I remember one of the first visitors we had to the Budgetary Oversight Committee was the chair of IFAC at the time, Seamus Coffey, he's chair again. And I remember him using the words that IFAC had been established by Brian Lenihan to institutionalise the memory of the crash. And that stayed with me. Now, the government do listen to it. I would certainly like to see them squirrel away a little bit more, but I'm not facing the decisions they have to make. But we will have, by the end of next year, close to 20 billion squirreled away for the future funds, the infrastructure and nature fund and the rainy day fund, to use a colloquial term for it. So there has been a steady setting aside of money, but I do think it's unfortunate that you've used that we can afford to pay for immigration. That was Ireland's contribution.
Yeah, but we
didn't.
I said we found the money.
But we also
yes
found,
or no?
Yes, but we also found the money. Well, we're living in far more uncertain times now, Michael. Yeah, and you're not in government, and you don't have to make these hard decisions. Yeah, we did when the country was closed down for 18 months. Yeah. Everybody was sustained, including businesses, hospitality. Everybody was sustained through that. That can't go on indefinitely.
Didn't.
No, but we also have a debt, and the government has been cumulatively managing that debt, reducing that debt. So the cost, there is a cost. It's not money that grows on trees in the back garden, Michael, with respect. And
with respect, I'm in business, are you?
Yeah. So I think those points need to be made too.
Michael, there might be a view amongst the business community, amongst those in the hospitality industry, that there should be a quid pro quo, given that some of the increased input costs they have faced have been on foot of government decisions. That increased minimum wage has gobbled up some of their margins, that increased kind of sick leave allowances and parental leave and all of these things have gobbled up the margins of small businesses. And this VAT rate cut, this proposal, is the quid pro quo for that.
Well, no, the hospitality employers are making this argument because that's what they're paid to do on behalf of their members, to actually argue for policies which will boost their profits wherever possible. There's no quid pro quo. They are in a very highly profitable situation as a sector as a whole. Yes, there will be businesses that are doing poorly, but as a whole, the sector is highly profitable. Now, if they do want supports, and there's no problem with having these supports, it should come with conditions. But those are the social conditionalities. For instance, they should be required to meet with the workers' representatives at the JLC to negotiate a wage floor across the sector and to improve terms and conditions, because one part of making the hospitality sector successful is to have high wages and good terms and conditions. So, and I just want to say this, and I don't want to go back into this argument about, well, we're spending 4 billion euros on these other people. I used to be one of those other people, I still am, Michael. I just remind you that since you're so supportive of the hospitality sector, remember that since the beginning of the recovery from COVID, over 50% of the employment in the hospitality sector has come from non-EU nationals.
And I'm the very person.
Non-EU nationals.
And I'm the very, just get one thing clear. Don't take it out of context. I'm one of the people that has many times spoken the dole that we need people in different sectors from other countries. We needed through the visa system simplified. And I'm the first person to talk about that.
Good.
But I want to make it clear as well that when Russia hit Ukraine, which was very unfortunate, which we don't condone, when people came from other countries here, there was an obligation on the government. They were able to get 4 billion. So let's not be pitting the hospitality, the carers, the pensioners and everyone against each other when we were able to
Are you
get
not
that
doing
money
that now
before.
with respect, Michael?
I mean,
you're saying let's not pit carers against the hospitality. Let's instead pit hospitality against asylum seekers.
No, I'm not talking. I'm explaining that we got the money. I'm not talking about asylum seekers or Ukrainian people. I am saying the cost of what it cost and that we found it. We found the money. There was an obligation on us to do a certain amount of it. And we found that money. I'm not pitting. But what we are doing now, if you listen to the beginning of this conversation, it was if the hospitality gets it, then we have a commitment to the carers. So let's be very clear on what I did say.
Well, we're going to find out what the government are going to do on Tuesday. We're going to have to leave the conversation around VAT there, but I want to remind you about our presidential election coverage that's also going to include the big interview, a series of one-on-ones with each candidate. The first of those will be with Jim Gavin next Monday at 10 here on Virgin Media 1, followed by analysis on The Tonight Show at 10:30.